welcome back to my channel and Happy New Year! I assume that this will be the first video that I post in 2021. It is the first video that I'm filming in 2021, so I wish you all a wonderful new year. I'm not quite done with 2020 yet. I still need to wrap up my December reading, which I'm going to do in this video. So in December I read 11 books, which is more books than I read in 1 month in a while. Most of the books I've read in December were pretty short books though, so my page count isn't really that high. But still, I had a good reading month. I really enjoyed most of the things that I read in December. I don't think I gave anything less than 3 stars. So it was a good reading month. I'm going to try and do this pretty quickly because I've already talked about most of the books that I read in December in the 2 vlogs that I did in December. So I feel like I've already talked about these books enough that I don't have to go in detail. So I think the way I'm going to do this is that I'm going to start going through the books that the bingo picked out for me for my TBR. It was 6 books altogether because I got an extra prompt in December. But the first prompt that I got was to read a non-fiction, and for that I read The Invisible Wall by Harry Bernstein. This is a memoir. It's Harry Bernstein who is telling his story about when he grew up as a young boy in a British town or city. And he is Jewish and he grew up in a pretty poor family, and this is at the start of the 1900s. And most of his neighbors and the street where he grew up, most people there are also really poor. His mother is very hardworking, but it's not easy for her because Harry's father, he is an alcoholic. And he is very, very distant from the kids' lives. He goes to work in the morning, and then he comes home late in the afternoon, he eats his dinner, and then he's off again, and he spends all evening at the pub. And he spends most of the money that he earns on alcohol, so Harry's mother doesn't really have much money to provide for the kids. There are 5 kids altogether, and Harry is the youngest. And in the street where Harry grows up, it's a very clear divide between the Jews on one side of the street and the Christians on the other side of the street. There is some contact, like the Jews will go to shop in a Christian store on the other side of the streets, for instance. So they're not completely separated, but there is a very, very clear divide. And as one major storyline in this book is about Harry's older sister and her relationship with a Christian boy, which is basically like a forbidden relationship. It's not accepted. So this is very good. It's very well written. I think the first time I read this book I gave it 5 stars. I would not give it 5 stars now, but I think that's just because this is not really the type of book that I'm into at this point. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just not quite for me. But I think I will still give it 4 stars. Like I said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So I think if you're into this type of stories, you would really enjoy this one. There is a sequel to this one that I also own and that I hope to get to quite soon because I want to read it while I still have this one fresh in my mind. So hoping to get to that one soon. So yeah, this was very good, not quite my thing, but still highly recommend if you think that this sounds interesting. The second prompt that the bingo gave me was to read the highest number on the board and add an extra prompt. And on the highest number, the prompt was to read a book with a person or people on the cover. And for this prompt I read You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. This I talked about quite a lot in my 'Tis the Season of Home vlog. So I'm not going to talk about it in detail now. I really, really enjoyed it. It's in a way quite typical YA, but it also had something about it that made it not quite typical, which I really enjoyed. I ended up giving this book 4 stars and thought it was really good. And for the extra prompt that I got, I picked the prompt to read a 5-star prediction. And for that, I picked up Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas, which is a book that I've been wanting to read for quite a long time now. And like I said, I read it for the prompt to read a 5-star prediction, and it wasn't quite 5 stars, but it was very, very close. So I really liked a lot about this book. I liked pretty much everything about it. The only thing that made me give it 4.5 stars instead of 5 stars was just the fact that, like, I'm quite picky about writing style, and the writing in this wasn't just, there was just something that didn't quite work for me, I guess. It's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly what it was. It just didn't flow properly at times, enough for me to like notice it when I was reading it. But it was quite minor, all in all, because the rest of this book I absolutely loved. So I gave it 4.5 stars. It's basically about a trans guy who feels like he's maybe not quite accepted by his family or his community. So basically he sets out to prove to like everyone around him that he is a real boy or a real man. And like along the way he accidentally summons a ghost, and the story becomes quite complicated, but it's really, really good. So if you still haven't picked up this book, I definitely recommend it, because it's very, very good. The next prompt that I got was a wild card. And for this, I chose to read a book that I needed to read in order to complete my Pop Sugar Reading Challenge for 2020. And that was this book. It's All Out, The No Longer Secret Stories of Queer Teens Throughout the Ages. And it's edited by Sondra Mitchell. This I started in the 'Tis the Season-a-thon vlog that I did, but I didn't complete it then. But you guys saw that I enjoyed this one, and I really did enjoy it. I am realizing, however, that short stories are maybe not quite my thing. I'm the kind of person who needs, or at least most of the time, I need to really care about the characters in a book in order to care about the book. And with short stories, I feel like we're just not spending enough time with characters for me to like start to care about them. There's just not enough time for that. So even though there were some stories in here that I really enjoyed, I wouldn't give any of them 5 stars just for that reason. There were some stories in here that I would give 4 stars. There are a couple of stories that I would give maybe 2 stars that didn't quite work for me. But most of the stories in here I would probably give like 3.5 stars. So I decided to give this one 3.5 stars altogether. It is a very good book, so I think if you like short stories and you want to read a book with queer short stories, this one would probably really work for you. They are historical fiction, all of them. Some have some paranormal elements in there as well. But yeah, this is a very good short story collection. All the stories are well written. So like I said, if you enjoy short stories, you should definitely consider picking up this one. Then I got the prompt to read a recent purchase. And for this I picked my most recent purchase. It was a book that I hadn't even received yet at the point that I put it on my TBR. But I did receive it quite soon after. And that was This Winter by Alice Oseman, which I've also talked about in a vlog. You guys know that I love Alice Oseman. You also know that I love this book. It's set in a universe that I already really care about, the Heartstopper universe. I wouldn't recommend, if you want to start reading Alice Oseman's books, I wouldn't recommend starting with this one, because I feel like this one is a very short novella. So I think you really need to read the other books in the universe first, at least Heartstopper, in order to enjoy this one. But if you have read those books and you enjoy that universe, I would highly recommend picking up this one as well. It is a story set on Christmas Day, and it's about the Spring family, the Spring siblings, Tori, Charlie and Oliver. And it's just like very well written, like all of Alice Oseman's books, and it just makes me feel stuff basically. So if you already love Alice Oseman and the universe that this book is set in, then I highly recommend picking up this one as well. And the final prompt that the bingo gave me was to read a book with a light cover. And for this prompt I picked a romance, and that was Blame It on the Mistletoe by Eli Easton. This book I read during Smartass, so I read it so I've already talked about it in a vlog. I really like this one. I like the way it was written. I like the storyline. It's basically about two roommates in college who becomes a little bit more than roommates. And it's set during Christmas, and I really enjoyed it. My only complaint, I guess, is the fact that it's a little bit too short. It's 99 pages long, and I wish that it was a full-length novel because I basically just wanted more. I think I would have enjoyed it more if it had been longer, basically. But still, it was really good. I really enjoyed the writing, and I am looking forward to read more books by Ila Easton. So at the very beginning of December, like I've already mentioned, I participated in the Tis the Season-a-thon, which is a holiday-themed readathon. And I've already talked about most of the books that I read for that readathon, but the final book I read for that readathon was Mr. Frosty Pants by Letta Blake. If you've seen that vlog, you would have seen me really enjoying that book. And I enjoyed it so much that later in December I ended up reading the sequel as well. And the sequel is called Mr. Nodelist. So the sequel is maybe a little bit, I guess, kinkier than Mr. Frosty Pants, but it still has like the same warmth and the same heart and like the Christmas feeling, and like some family involvement, which is one of the things I really loved about Mr. Frosty Pants as well. So basically, in the second book, we follow two new main characters. One of them is a friend of the two main characters from the first book. So in this book we have the two main characters. One of them is Aaron, who is a teacher, and the other one is RJ, who many years earlier used to be Aaron's student. So like nothing happened, or nothing inappropriate happened when they were like teacher and student. RJ maybe had a little crush on Aaron, but Aaron didn't really know this. RJ at all, so it was like nothing inappropriate about it. And now, several years later, they accidentally meet up, and they basically hook up, and the story goes from there. Feelings start to develop and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed the second book as well. It sort of gave me some of the same feelings that the first book gave me. If I had to pick, I would maybe pick the first book. But all in all, I enjoyed them pretty much the same. I think I would give both of them 4.5 stars. They're just really great holiday romances if you're into that kind of thing. So I'm really happy that I decided to read them in December. And then I read 3 more books in December. All of them I've already talked about in a vlog. I read them for Smartass basically. So I read a holiday romance called Yours for the Holiday by D.J. Jameson, which is a book that I liked it, but I didn't love it. So it was just like several things that just didn't quite work for me. So I ended up giving that one 3 stars. And then I read the group book for Smartass, which was Tangled Vows by Anna Stone. This is a female romance. And I've been meaning to read more female romances, so I picked it up for that reason. Unfortunately, once again, didn't quite work for me. Like I mentioned in my vlog, I'm wondering if maybe the audiobook was a little bit to blame for that, because I didn't really like how the narrator did the voices of the 2 main characters, especially one of them. Because that basically I didn't really like the characters in this book, and I'm wondering if maybe the audiobook is a little bit to blame for that, but I'm not sure. But I ended up giving this book 3 stars as well. And then finally I read Guarding His Heart by R. Caden, which you would have seen me in that vlog talking about how much I enjoyed it. I didn't finish it in that vlog, but I can tell you that I ended up really enjoying this book. It was just really good. It's like a bodyguard romance basically. It's about a young scientist who lives in this big house. I think he's like in his mid-20s or something, and he's like super smart, but he lives alone in this big house, and his father is very rich, and because of that there has been some kidnapping threats towards his son, this young scientist. So his father hires a bodyguard to come live at his house to look after this young scientist. So it's basically like a bodyguard romance. It's like an age gap romance as well. The bodyguard it's never really stated. I'm assuming he is like maybe in his mid-40s or something, so like 20 years older than the scientist. But I just really loved the storyline between these two. I love the chemistry. The writing was really, really good. There's maybe a bad boy aspect here, because this bodyguard does have a pretty shady past. But like, he's a good guy at heart, so I really, really enjoyed this book. I've noticed that there are 2 more books in this series, I think, and I am just very eager to read those as well, because I really, really enjoyed this book. So if this sounds interesting to you, then definitely pick it up, because it was great. So that was the 11 books that I read in December. Like I said, I had a good reading month. I really enjoyed most of the things that I read. A lot of the things that I read were romance, because I was just in the mood to read romance in December. And honestly, now it's the start of January, I'm still in the mood to read romance, so if I have time, I might pick up some romances this month as well, but we'll see. I'm excited to read the books that the bingo picked out for me as well, so I'm just excited altogether to start this new year and hopefully read a lot of great books. So I think that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon for another video. Bye!